Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today I'm just going to jump straight into it because I'm really excited to talk to our guest today because he has spent over $100 million on paid ads. And if you guys are good at math, that's a lot of money. And he's worked with brands like the Udi and Elite Supplements. Welcome to the show. Tell everyone what your name is, tell everyone who you are, and yeah, we'll start from there.
Hey Steve, appreciate you inviting me. So yeah, as you mentioned, my name is Marin. Come from Croatia. I run a boutique agency focused on paid social. Facebook is our bread and butter. We do some Google ads, we do some TikTok ads, but I would say Facebook is what we are best at. I'm doing Facebook ads for the past 7 years, and I started from junior position, then to freelancer, mid senior head of performance, currently partner at the same agency when I was working as a freelancer. So that was quite a journey, and my whole journey is tied to the Inspire agency. And besides the agency, we have internal brand that hit 30 mil in our third year because
Wow.
we realized that we can scale other people's businesses and make them money. So why not scale our own? So that's why we decided to start internal brand. So I'm kind of now like juggling between the roles on the agency and the brand side.
Okay, so I didn't know that. So we're about to have a really fun conversation because, so for me, I don't know how much you know about me, probably nothing. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. Is for my wife and I, we had two different seven-figure e-commerce stores, both of them going over seven figures in their first 12 months individually. So since then, fast forward a few years, we have been helping brands and similar to you, I've started off with helping brands through paid marketing. That was one of the areas, Facebook ads. So that's why I was really interested to talk to you because you spend a lot more money than I have. So you probably have a lot more learnings than I do. But on top of that, is this year one of our goals is to start an internal brand, which is something that is not advertised. People don't know that yet. So with you doing so much paid marketing, 7 years is quite a long time, especially with Facebook and all the things that have changed. When you decided to create your own brand, how did you get started? Like, how did you decide, well, this is going to be the product, this is what we're going to sell? How did you start there?
Yeah, so that's something that my partner was kind of like he's the brain behind it. I'm the guy that is actually doing the marketing and growth side. So it's a kind of perfect combination. He realized there's an opportunity to like there's a demand for this kind of product, but we decided that we can make it cheaper and we can make it better. So basically, we created product that um, saves you time, saves you money, and it is more effective. So basically, you have three additional unique selling proposition compared to the competitors. So you need to have that unfair advantage if you want, if you can actually make, if you can scale a brand. Because besides that, it will be hard to compete with already saturated audience. Our first thing was to start a brand that has existing demand, because before we tried, we saw like a huge gap. We had an amazing product, we had an amazing idea, we were first in the market. CPMs were so cheap, we were kind of like category leaders, but there was just no demand. So then we decided like, okay, this just doesn't make sense. We cannot spend so much time and money into educating market that they need this product. So we tap into the existing trend, but we just made a better product.
That's really cool. So, with your experience working with brands like the Udi, Elite Supplements, and a bunch of these other brands, when you decided to create your own, have you noticed that the offer, so basically the product, the service, whatever it is that you guys are marketing to, makes a big difference in how well the ads actually perform?
Huge difference. So I'm a media buyer, and I always
Yeah.
say to my clients, hey, like media buying is just a cherry on the top. It's amplifier when everything else is working. So first thing is product market fit. Second thing is offer. The third is creatives. So what we still see for our brand, when we switch the offer, when you do some price anchoring, when you decrease the prices, when you give product for free, when you do bundling, it has a tremendous impact on the Facebook ads performance. So let's say I can speak for our brand. We are testing 10 to 15 concepts a week. And then, like with a regular offer, let's say I have two tests that are winning. But when we revamp the offer and our profit per visitor is better, I get 5, 6 winning creatives. Nothing is different on the ad side. It's just a different offer. So I
Mm.
would say definitely offer has a huge impact on the performance of the ads.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that as well. This is something I've run into with, and I would love to get your take on this, is depending on the clientele, I've noticed that with bigger brands that we've worked with, so I mean, bigger being $5 million and above, is that they have an understanding that things need to be tested, including their product pricing, their offers, whatever it may be, like landing pages, everything. And then some of these smaller brands, so $1 million or less, they just think that you run more traffic and you'll make more sales. So have you run into that too? What's your take on all that?
Yeah, that's definitely true because these small brands think that like you're a Facebook ads magician that's gonna just came into their ad account and like just do this and things will turn around. Obviously, sometimes that can happen if the ad account is in a terrible shape. There's like now no proper optimization, no proper testing structure, no buyer's exclusion, no post ID and stuff like that. But with technical stuff, usually I can improve results to 20, 30%. The rest really depends on the outside of the ad account things, and offer is being one of those. Obviously, it's hard for these guys that are smaller to, I don't know, pay intelligence or like pay a zero agency 4 or 5K to do a
Mm-hmm.
couple of tests. Plus, they don't have enough traffic to actually have statistical significance on those tests. So that's why they think for them, okay, it's easier to let's try to solve the problems with Facebook ads. As I said, that can be solved to an extent, but that's definitely not one-time solution.
So with your brand, because you guys are significantly bigger than $1 million, if you're over there at 30 million, how do you do your testing now? Because you said you're testing 15 different concepts in a week. What does that look like as far as ad spend per day? Because I know with some of the smaller brands, it can be as little as like $20 a day, but you just have to extend out the time frame to get those kind of learnings. Some people we've worked with is $1,000 a day. There's people I've talked to where they're doing $250,000 a day. But how do you structure that?
Yeah, so there are two types of tests. One is offer testing that's done in a backend, as I said, with pricing, with different elements on the store. That's all done in intelligence. We basically create two instances of the page with the same link and just the traffic splits 50-50. And then we observe which variation has higher profit per visitor. Because sometimes, let's say you can have higher price point that would get you higher revenue per visitor, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to necessarily be higher profit per visitor. So that's our main metric when it comes to testing on the website. On the other side, in the ad account, testing is actually creative testing, and for me, each concept is a new ad set. For me, concept is either different style of the video, let's say unboxing, product review, us versus them, or angle, let's say anti-acne, anti-botox, anti-aging, or whatever. So basically, messaging of the ad. Each ad has 2 to 5 variation of that concept. So if it's an image, it's let's say same image but 5 different text overlays that are trying to communicate the same message. If it's a video, then it's the same body of the video but like let's say 3 to 5 different hooks, because my goal is to find a winning variation within the concept. Okay, that now we covered the like technical stuff. In terms of the ad account setup, the number of tests and the starting budget depends on okay, what's my overall daily budget? What's the AOV? How much budget, how many concepts or tests the creative team can produce, and how high is usually the success rate of the test. So let's say if I have a client that's spending 2K a day and he tells me, hey, like we have 10 concepts a week, I cannot test that in an ABO, especially if the hit rate is low, because I would potentially waste a lot of budget on testing, especially if I start, let's say, with $100. So that means like I would spend 1K a day out of 2K overall budget, and that's not sustainable. But on the other side, let's say for our internal brand, we are spending 30K a day, and I get 10 to 15 concepts a week. So, and I know that my generally success rate of the test is like, let's say 4 out of 10. I can start in an ABO with $100 per ad set, where each new ad set is a new test. So basically, if I have 10 concepts, I would have 10 different ad sets, each with multiple variation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would scale each of the individual good ad sets. So why I can do that? Because my overall budget is 20, 30K. So basically 1K a day is nothing. The second thing is the tests are successful. So by me scaling the good individual test, I can offset the performance of the bad tests. On a smaller ad account, I cannot do that because I cannot start with high budget. And generally, the tests are not so successful. So I would potentially test in a CBO. Then Facebook would pick 1 of 2 out of these 10. So it really depends, as I mentioned, on the AOV, number of available tests, on overall ad account budget, and the success rate of the tests.
So that all makes sense to me. So when you are doing these tests, because you were saying different ad sets, which is actually pretty interesting. That's the same way I do my testing as well. is when you find the winning creatives, do you typically move those over into an ASC campaign, or how do you typically do that?
Exactly. So first of all, I continue to scale them in the testing campaign. So there are a lot of
Hmm.
people that are testing in a
Yeah.
separate campaign, but then they find a winner, they move it, but they killed it in testing. I never kill it. So in most of my ad accounts, testing campaign actually becomes my scaling campaign, just because I scale whatever is working there. I don't care if it's labeled as testing. If it's working there, I will keep scale it. So that's campaign number one. And campaign number two is Advantage Shopping Plus, where I take all of the winners from the tests with the post ID that enables me to carry the social proof, and I put them into one big Advantage Shopping Plus with a high budget and with a cost cap. That allows me to actually, let's say I would put that campaign on 20K, and it would have only winner and it would have cost cap at my target CPA. So let's say on Tuesday, it would spend 5K, on Thursday it would spend 7K, but let's say on a weekend, when conversion rate is higher, when there's a bigger demand for the product, it would spend 25K. So basically that means I'm just scaling on a weekend just because there's a more demand. And I cannot assume how big the demand would be on a weekend. So that means my testing campaign is always scaling gradually, but then the Advantage Shopping Plus is like this and it spikes on a weekend. And the thing is, why I move only winners with the post ID, because sometimes Facebook can ignore the bid. Let's say I put cost cap of 100. Sometimes Facebook can spend like 150. So if it spent 20K with 150, fuck, I lost my money. But if I have only winning ads, there's a low chance that Facebook would overspend so much. Even if it spends more, it cannot be that bad because that's a winning ad. That's a proven ad that I already proved is winning ad in testing. So it cannot be that bad. So that's kind of like a safety net. So those are two core campaigns that I usually have in the ad account. One is ABO testing campaign, where each new test is a new ad set, and the other is Advantage Shopping Plus with winners that are carried with post ID and with a cost cap that is around my target CPA that I'm comfortable Facebook spending.
So I would love to get your opinion on this, but I've seen here recently with like retargeting campaigns doing it manually. Is that something you still do, or do you just like leave ASC
No.
to do that? Because I think that that's basically an outdated model now, where
Yeah.
you're running retargeting campaigns. Because the Advantage Sales campaigns, they do that with that, like they do the retargeting for you, as far as my
Yeah.
understanding.
So not just Advantage Shopping Plus, even your regular campaign can do the retargeting. Basically,
Oh,
everything in my ad account is run on broad, but
hmm.
whether the ad is doing retargeting or not, that depends on the ad, not on the campaign type. So let's say if you have an image that is us versus them image, or you have an
Hmm.
image that says like, hey, 30% off, that ad is 100% going to do retargeting. No way it's going to do prospecting. So you can see it for the same amount of spend, that ad would have way higher frequency. And if you're using Norbeam or Triple Whale, you can compare percentage of new visits. So you can see that that ad would have like, let's say 30% new visits compared to the video that's like top of the funnel, it would have 70. So that tells me, hey, Facebook is doing retargeting with this kind of ad. Plus, one of the greatest features that Facebook added in the past couple of years, actually months, that you can define your audiences on the ad account level. So basically, you can define what is the engaged audience. I usually put website visitors there. You can define existing customers. I usually put Klaviyo sync list of buyers and purchase 180 days. So you then can go to audience breakdown and you can see, hey, out of let's say 10K, Facebook spent 7K on top of the funnel, 2K on middle of the funnel, which is your engaged audience, and then 1K on existing customers. So that gives you clarity which ad to what extent is doing retargeting. So as I said, it's not necessarily just in Advantage Shopping Plus. It can be in the regular campaign as well, but that definitely depends on the type of the ad.
Ah, I didn't know that. I mean, I understood that a lot of that happens with the creative, with how your ad is set up. I didn't realize that the campaign structure didn't matter as much. That's really interesting. So I just
Yeah.
learned something today. So I would love to get your take on this as well. So if you were talking to someone where they were starting up let's say they were starting up a brand and they wanted to get to $1 million in their first year in revenue, how much budget should they set aside to run towards paid marketing, and how would you structure that?
Okay, so that's a good question. To be honest, like I never like in the past 5 6 years I did not work with any brand that is just starting out, but like I
Yeah.
can provide definitely some example. I don't have a set budget. What I need to know that you need to have like a product market fit. No amount of money will help you, no amount of creatives would help you if you don't have a product market fit. So for that I would probably, and for the offer I would probably like look for inspiration of the competitors in terms of the pricing. Are they giving, like, let's say, there are some, sunglasses brand that are giving like buy one get one or stuff like that, which usually sounds better than 50% off. Plus
Yep.
your AOV is higher, so that offer is really important. In terms of the paid side, I would not start running any ads until I do some kind of research. So what we usually do for our existing clients, we take their existing customer reviews, or if you're starting out, I would go to Amazon, to your competitors, scrape the reviews of the product, and I would feed that to ChatGPT or A3 or some other tool, and I would ask it, hey, like, what are the reasons people are buying this product? What problems do they have? How this product solves this product? How they are feeling? Basically, you will get so much data that you can use in your marketing. We had some clients that are, let's say, one client was selling um, supplement brand that is like coffee replacement, and we realized through customer reviews that people that are buying this product are mostly teachers that are working afternoon shifts, and people that are like office workers, so they don't want to take coffee at like afternoon because it creates jitters, they cannot
Hmm.
sleep. So then we started marketing, hey, like, be productive in your afternoon meetings, work effortlessly your afternoon shift. So just by switching the messaging, like, our results improved because we understood who our customers are and we speak their language. So that's what I would definitely say is the crucial thing when you're just starting out. Not what you think your product does and how your product helps, what your customers actually think. You will find like a lot of golden nuggets, key phrases that you can use in your ads that your customers are saying.
That's really good. Thank you. So if you're, let's say that same brand, they get to a million, now they've scaled it up, they're at 10 million. They're talking to you and it's like, hey, we want to get to 30. When you're scaling companies, because the way that you do it sounds like you could scale very quickly, is when they're scaling up, how do you keep them from running into other bottlenecks like supply chain logistics? How do you help them navigate that? Because I've seen that with some brands, just basically context, where they'll go from $100,000 to a half a million, and now all of a sudden they 5x their business and they can't keep up with the demand anymore.
Yeah, so to be honest, in terms of the back end, like in logistic and supply chain and stock levels, like, I'm not providing help on that side. I'm just like
Yeah.
on the front end, but I can speak for our brand. So basically, we realize that influencers are a huge channel for us, that they create a lot of outside of the ad account demand that then Facebook ads is capturing. So then we
Mm.
hired like three more people on the influencer side. So like we tripled the number of people that we are reaching out. We tripled the number of influencers that are posting. We tripled the number of people that we are running whitelisting ads through due to those partnerships. So basically, we identify like 80/20, that is kind of like getting us the most results. That's one thing. The other thing, you have to start thinking outside of the box, but because the thing that got you from 10 to 15 are not the same thing that are gonna got you from, let's say, 15 to 30, how we paced. So basically, then we expanded into other channels, let's say native ads. Then we realized that, okay, let's open some additional markets and localize it. Let's, I don't know, check app login. Let's introduce new product to increase the LTV. So basically, it's not going to happen from the ad account. It's a lot of small things that can help. Let's say we added Amazon that is bringing, 10, 20K a day just, by having a listing there. So those are the things that are going to help. Then, like, we renegotiated our um, uh, prices in terms of the production because we order more products in a bulk because we are growing. That allowed us to lower the prices, which is like 3-4% extra on contribution margin, which helps. So like, those are a lot of things that are compounding, but you have to identify which of things are worth pursuing. For example, we are thinking to go into retail, but that's like in a fifth year. Basically, we could done that in a second year, but it probably would not make sense. So you need to identify which things make sense from your side to implement on what level. Sometimes you'll be wrong. For example, we hired some people, we hired some agencies that like we hired zero agency that were doing like pretty basic tests in terms of the layout and colors of the button and stuff like that. Did not have any impact. We hired organic agency to help us go viral from time to time. That did not work at all. But on the other side, we had success. Obviously, we still start to pursue like organic, because paid is getting more expensive and more harder year by year. But as I said, there are different things inside of the business that you need to start focusing on when you are growing at that level.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what have you seen as far as, because I know that you do a ton of tests, but there's this idea right now that there's basically user generated content does way better than professional videos and photography. Have you seen that be true, or what's your take on that?
Again, depending what we classify as a UGC. So
Yep.
it started amazing because nobody used UGC. Now everybody are using UGC. Yep. So now again, like that raw content from your existing customers and something that feels super native, let's say street style interview that are going viral on TikTok, now that has an edge over a UGC, because nowadays everybody can write a script, give it a script to the creator, and you can just feel it's fake. And now people appreciate that rawness and that like authentic experience, especially, with all AI that's coming and AI generated creatives, voiceovers and stuff like that. So I think we are going back to the level that like authenticity is what sells.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's something. I have a client that he's in the AI space, and this kind of it was interesting. Like, the guy is actually pretty big. He's a international speaker. He's been doing e-commerce for 20 years, and he's sitting there using AI to generate all of his testimonials. And I'm like, but as I saw on your page that there's people who have actually just sat there with their phone and sit there and recorded you videos, and you will post those. It's like, why don't you just use those? I said, that's more real. It's like, I can tell that that's AI. And that immediately turns me off to it. Even though it was only a $6 offer, it's like, I don't trust you now because you didn't even, you're saying that this is Jane, but that's definitely not Jane. You're saying that this is Bob, and that is definitely not Bob. So one thing I would love to ask you, because you're talking about going into retail, there's a brand that I was reading an article on them a few months ago. They're called Represent. They're Represent Clothing there, and they did 100 million last year, and now they're expanding into retail. So what do you see? Because for me, I've always only been online. I've never expanded retail space. And then there's some people I know, they start retail and then expand into e-commerce. What are the advantages that you see being an e-com and then going retail?
So I know that people that expand from e-com to retail, they usually see like a drop in performance, because some people, let's say, I know like the brand Obi that are selling, collagen and supplements. So like they notice a huge drop in their performance when they were mentioning, hey, we're in Walmart and stuff like that, because people are familiar with Walmart. It's like next to their house. So they actually had a downside. Obviously, like holistically, they were growing, but their paid side was shrinking. On the other side, I definitely think it creates like that effect, and it helps you with the brand awareness. On the other side, when you're coming from a retail side and you're going into brand, it can be hit or miss. Some brands that are like have huge exposure, that they can have like amazing results. But the caveat is that I had a couple of brands that are like, big organically, then they started with paid. And Facebook is just claiming a lot of the sales that are view conversions that would probably happen either way. So I had some clients that they were like spending, they launched on Facebook, and they were like, in a month, they were spending 10K a day. So it was like, okay, this is impressive. But when I checked percentage view conversions, it was like 70%. So that means that Facebook was just claiming the sales that would probably happen either way. So I told them, guys, like, this doesn't make sense. You're like scaling like based on the numbers that are not real. So I told them, hey, let's switch everything to 7-day click, and let's cut the budget. So we cut 100K in budget, and basically their revenue stayed the same. So that means that like Facebook did not have any impact on their performance, because they were a huge brand. They were relying on Facebook 7-day click, 1-day view, which is default one, and which usually makes sense. But when you have more than 20-30% of view conversions, then okay, switch only to click, because otherwise you're just like spending money in vain.
That makes sense. That's something I heard just a little bit of that in the past. I've never personally done that. And I think that that's really interesting, though, to sit there and think about it in that way. Because, again, with the brands that you're working with, especially with the paid side, I mean, when I start working with brands that are that big, usually I'm just consulting. So I'm just like advising them on
Yeah.
what to do because I look at the whole business, not so much on the paid side. So to hear that's really fascinating to me because there was a brand that I did work with last year and they were spending about $40,000 a month. And what was fascinating with them, somewhere around there, and I came in and immediately just like cut out in the first week $3,000 worth of ad spend because it's like you are spending a ton of money and making no money.
Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
just like they're like, hey, but you know, it's we're able to pay off our credit cards with it and stuff. I'm going, but that's I'm telling you, you are not making actual money. You just think you're making money. And I thought that that's really fascinating that brands can be doing like that brand had done 120,000 in revenue in 1 month and they didn't know that revenue did not equal profit. And I was just blown away. It's like those are two completely different numbers,
Yeah,
especially in the e-commerce world.
definitely. Like, I mean, if you like going through some numbers and like I know a couple of like high level operators, but like I mean, profit number, net profit is like between 10 and 20% for most
Hmm.
ecom. So like if you're doing 100K a month in revenue, usually you're just taking home like 10 to 20K, which is like mind blowing because you have COGS, you have Facebook ads, you have OPEX. Obviously, as you scale, your OPEX are staying the same, so that can increase. But like people are mind blown when they hear that like okay, like profit is just like 10 to 20%.
Yeah. I think that that's always so funny because people like we had one of those brands I was telling you about earlier that went to seven figures. It was at 10%. So
Yeah,
I said, don't get it twisted. That's not a lot of money. It's
yeah,
like
yeah, exactly.
we did 13,000 transactions to make $100,000. And then of course, out of that 100,000, we had a partner and that partner was our financial backer. They took half of it. So it's like we made less money than I was making working in a corporate job at that
Exactly.
time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like okay, the name of the game is to take as much as money home as you can. So if you want to like I mean, definitely the industry changed. What I'm trying to say is like if you asked me 5 years ago, people were like, "Oh, okay, let's chase the revenue, let's chase the growth." Like people were like doing 50 mil, like not even profitable. That was considered a great business. Nowadays, like you cannot consider that a great business. Now people value profit over revenue, and I honestly like that that's changed because you don't have like all these guys that are like just boasting with the numbers that are like running on like 2% profit margin or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have a pretty big network of investors, and investors won't touch a business unless
Exactly.
they're profitable, and they have
Yeah.
to be really profitable now. In the past, I mean, less than 10 years ago, you could just be chasing revenue numbers, and if your revenue was high, then investors would just give you money. You could go raise a seed A or seed B round for 10, 15, $20 million, and they just give it to you because you know you're
Yeah.
over there making 20 million, but your profitability is like through the floor. It's just absolutely awful.
Exactly. Yeah. And I honestly like that this has changed because I mean, just pumping the numbers is like it's way to a disaster, especially let's say after COVID. Like we jump start like 5 years ago, 5 years in front due to the like whole demand that happened. But then after that, there's like very very little brands that could match the numbers of the COVID year because it was just like okay, it was something that's a unicorn year, not something that's happening usually. So I think like definitely profit is more important than the revenue.
Yeah, for sure. So as we come to the end of our time, how can people find you? So I mean, if there's brands that are big enough to work with you, A, who are they? So how big do they need to be where it makes sense for you guys to work together? And then B is how do they find you?
Yeah. So usually we work with the brands that are spending at least 50K a month on Facebook ads. Because if you're not spending at least 1.5K a day, I don't think you need to hire a Facebook agency. You need to like either sort your creatives or your conversion rate optimization or something. If you're spending that and you're spending profitably, that's a sign to me that okay, you're doing something right. You have a product market fit. Now we can take you to the next level. Usually the best ways to find me is on Twitter. I, on a daily basis, share tips and tricks, strategies that I'm using on Facebook ads. So you can learn a bit. And then if you're interested in working together, you can just send me DM. Uh, I pretty much reply to most of DMs that are not, hey, I want to sell you this DM setter or something like that.
Yeah, I have that happen all the time. I told someone this, and then we'll close it out. But I said if you really want to gain a following, especially on LinkedIn, just put podcast host because I had at least 100 people reach out to me and just be like,
Really?
"Hey, you want to expand your podcast audience?" It still happens all the time. I mean, I had at least 100, probably by now, because I've been doing this for a couple of years, a little over a year and a half. Probably I've had at least 150 to 200 people that connect with me on LinkedIn just to try to sell me podcasting services.
Oh, wow.
And it varies greatly where it goes from, "Hey, let's help you. I'll make shorts for you," or it's like, "We can help expand your Apple podcast," and or all the way down to, it's like, "Hey, do you want to get 250,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the week?" And I'm always just like, there's something weird about that. I
Yeah,
feel like that's probably
definitely.
going to be really bad if I did that. It's like, it's only $50. It's like, no, I'm good. Go ahead. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
as I said, anybody who's genuinely interested in working or learning
yeah,
a bit more about Facebook ads, I reply to their DMs. So if that's you, just hit me up.
awesome. Thank you so much, Marin, for being with us today. For those of you guys that are listening, we'll see you in the next episode.